Welcome, comrades, to first edition of Watch This Review. Today we showcase Omega Red from Wave 10 of the Marvel Legends series. It was also known as the Sentinel Build-A-Figure series. Now I am a big fan of Omega Red, but let's quickly jump forward to some action shots. So now let us jump forward to run through the figure, yeah? Now, Omega Red is mutant, original name Arkady Rosovich. He was supposedly a murderer who, during execution, was shot in the back of the head, but he survived. So they tossed him in the Soviet equivalent of the Captain America Super Soldier program. I'm pulling out this tentacle because you cannot pose him with his tendrils in. Call them tentacles, tendrils. I think they're technically tendrils, but now look, he's got his little Omega Red signs here, but you'll notice that it's not a proper Omega symbol. Like on the comic book right here, you'll notice that it comes to more of a point, typically in the real sign, but I guess the painter job isn't a huge consideration. In fact, speaking of the paint job in general, it's a very basic job. They have metallic look for parts of figure, but in general it's just basic, solid, boring colors, except for the face, which has a lot of detail, really furrowed brows, raised eyebrows. But he has the puppet face. Look at the puppet face. It looks like the line from his teeth goes straight up here. Has one of those crazy smiles where people cut the sides of your face with the jagged stuff. But otherwise I do like the detailing. He has his metal things, which I didn't think protruded so far, but it's nice, and you can even move his ponytail for whatever reason. I actually happen to like a lot of the crazy white-haired, red-eyed guys with the ponytails like Ripclaw and stuff, just because they look like so wacky and so zany, so over the top. Like I was showing you, his hands move at the wrists. They also move up here, but it's tough to get it because the joints. These are all pin joints, by the way. Ugly, ugly pin joints, but very practical and easy to repair if it ever breaks. Double pin joint on elbows. You'll notice the shoulders pop out with that joint there. Doesn't allow too much extra movement, just a little bit more over the head. Like, makes it look like he's adjusting his ponytail instead of the ponytail adjusting itself. His arms can't, when you pose him like this, he won't be able to really stay in place all that well because of the tremendous amount of weight and the distribution. The stand helps very little because the stand is light, the figure is big, 7 inches, and not super heavy, but noticeably heavy. The straps are a cheaper material. I do not like the shoulder straps, but it looks better than the alternative looking at ball joints, and they keep the pads in place, of course. Now, you can do the standard typical stuff, but the shoulder pads get in the way of it. If you choose to grab somebody for some reason, you can do that. You can do the typical back pose here. His waist does move. He has an ab joint with a fair amount of movement, actually. You don't get a huge amount of movement on the ab joint sometimes. Ball joints for legs. And for some reason, this moves, but you wouldn't think it would move. You think it should move like this because this should all be one solid piece. And then this does this too, which is kind of crazy for same reason. And his boots can move back and forth, back and forth. All in all, he's an okay looking figure. He came packed with the Sentinel lower torso piece, which also is in the Mystique, only real duplicate in series. Out of the two, you should definitely go with him because the Mystique is just an awful looking sculpt. Doesn't look like woman at all, let alone Mystique. But, it's a fairly decent figure. I got him in 2006, paid $14 including shipping and handling. Reasonably happy. I didn't like him at first, but he's an acquired taste. You'll notice the metal's really faded up here too. Came with a comic book. Regrettably, it's not the comic book where he beats the X-Men, it's the comic book where the X-Men beat him. Odd choice, but whatever. I also have that original issue. I have most of the early issues from that series. I think up to issue 20 or 30, but it's back when I was collecting and so forth. But yeah, I mean, the tendrils are really cheap. They will lose shape after time, and don't ever touch it to the flesh of the figure because the colors will cross-contaminate. Same problem with the Sentinel ones. Because it's basically the same tendrils. But yeah, I mean, I'd give him an 8.5 if I rated figures, but it's doable mostly for the character, who's a pretty kick-ass character, who doesn't get many figures, but make up your own mind.